As Tony's oldest son, Kevin Beets is under more pressure than ever before to succeed in the high-stakes world of gold mining. Kevin, renowned as the Klondike King, has emerged as a formidable mine boss intent on forging his own path. However, he has faced several obstacles along the way, including a new location, an inexperienced crew, and a daring scheme. Running his enterprise around the clock with an unseasoned team is a huge risk that Kevin has accepted. Kevin knew there was no way out of his gold haul of 330, far from the numbers needed to stay on track for their ambitious 1,000-ounce season goal. So he devised a high-risk plan, introducing a night shift to turn things around. Now his team has relocated 100 miles away, marking a new chapter in their gold mining venture. Kevin had nearly $2 million of his life savings invested in the mine. Keeping the operation running smoothly through the long, grueling nights to make his 247 operation work was the real challenge, especially with a mostly inexperienced crew. The idea was simple. If they could run the wash plan around the clock, they could double their production. Despite being from a mining family and possessing 5 years of expertise managing wash plants, Kevin recruited new employees, one of which was 22-year-old Caden Foote. When it came to this specific procedure, Caden was still a novice. Throughout his first night shift, he kept the plant operating throughout his first test cast. The operation seemed to be simple enough. Just fill the hopper, empty the tailings, and keep an eye on the pumps. However, it was really a highly fast-paced, high-pressure atmosphere where every second mattered. The wash facility handled 150 yards of paid dirt each hour, and any slip-up might result in expensive delays. Operating a mining operation during the nighttime has several obstacles. Night visibility is reduced, making it more difficult to identify equipment failures. Personnel are isolated, forcing them to make vital choices without quick help. Animals also provide a risk, which adds another layer of peril. Running a gold mine around the clock is a daunting challenge, even for seasoned miners. But for Kevin Beets, who has taken on the role of mine boss for the first time, the stakes are even higher. However, with a crew made up mostly of young and inexperienced miners keeping the mine running at all hours was a risky endeavor, and that risk became clear when his very first full night shift ended in disaster. Kevin had placed his trust in Caden Foote, a 22-year-old miner eager to prove himself. For most of his shift, things had been running smoothly. The wash plant turned away, processing hundreds of yards of pea dirt. But then, without warning, that the operation came to a complete stop. The conveyor belt, an essential part of moving gold-rich material into the plant, had shut down. Confused upon first inspection, everything seemed to be in order. The drive wheel was turning freely, but Caden could tell that something was off. Upon closer inspection, the explanation for the belt's inertia became glaringly apparent. As the heavy pay dirt piled up in the hopper, the thick rubber belt tore right down the center and totally ripped apart. Upon Kevin's arrival, he took one glance at the damage and realized there was no fast remedy. His visage betrayed his irritation as he let out a harsh breath and shook his head in disapproval. Caden, still processing what had happened, turned to Kevin, guilt creeping into his voice. He wanted to know if there was anything he could have done differently, some way to have prevented the breakdown. But Kevin, despite his frustration, was honest with him. The belt had already been wearing out, its cracks worsening over time. The failure wasn't a matter of negligence, it was simply bad timing. Still, the consequences were significant. Before the belt could even be repaired, the crew faced a grueling task, digging out the 12 tons of paved dirt that had built up in the hopper. When the morning shift arrived, the aftermath of the breakdown was waiting for them. The sight of the clogged hopper buried under a mountain of dirt was enough to sour their moods. A number of people expressed their concerns about the day shift team. start their weekday right by cleaning up after the night shift. One of them couldn't contain his annoyance and made fun of the situation, thinking it was unfair that the night crew could go home and relax while they were left to deal with the aftermath. As tensions rose, Kevin calmed everyone down by reminding them that nobody was to blame and that the team had to keep pushing through the frustration. After the hopper was cleared, Kevin and his crew began the tedious process of repairing the belt, which involved cutting off the damaged section, aligning it correctly, and securing new belt clips. Time ticked by, and after 16 hours of downtime, the operation was finally prepared to restart. As the sun set once again, Caden returned for his second night shift, but he was still burdened by what had transpired the night before. He saw that the breakdown wasn't his fault. Now, the only thing to do was concentrate on maintaining. Canning, a young miner hunter, volunteered to work a 12-hour shift alone the next morning when the facility was up and running. In preparation for the next long hours, she promptly checked in with the departing night crew to make sure everything was in order. Much to her relief, the hopper had been operating well throughout the night, and there had been no unforeseen shutdowns. The facility functioning efficiently, Hunter settled into his routine, but mining is never predictable, and just when things seemed to be going well, a new problem arose. Hunter was in the middle of his shift when she noticed something was off. Nothing was feeding into the wash plant. She immediately grabbed his radio, calling out to his crew. The response was swift: shut everything down. Rushing over to inspect the system, Hunter quickly identified the issue. A massive rock had wedged itself into the conveyor, jamming it completely. Worse still, another rock had lodged itself right against it, making the blockage even more difficult to clear. She let out a frustrated sigh, knowing how much work it would take to fix this. The thought of shoveling out another load of dirt like the crew had done the day before was almost unbearable, but Hunter wasn't